let's enter the real world of quantum computing.
I see a lot of people trying to sense make this quantum thing, and it's a technical field. There's a lot of I'd say red herrings where people are, sort of focusing on the less important thing. That, people say, oh, Grover's algorithm could make quantum miners and they could mine Bitcoin super fast. And this is just not realistic for a bunch of technical reasons. But one is that even if you have a quantum miner, you're still competing with the rest of the mining network. And the rest of the mining network, I just looked it up, over 900 exahashes per second. That's quintillions, 900 quintillion hashes per second. Quintillion, it goes million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion.
Sorry.
So each one of those is 1,000x from the previous one.
I'm an average human. I can't even. Nope.
It's by far the largest supercomputer on the planet.
Right.
So the idea is that some guy in his garage or even a company or a government is going to go make a quantum computer that's going to outpace that is not realistic. It's a red herring. So but the digital signatures are vulnerable because you only have to crack one key to cause a whole bunch of problems.
Right.
So, on Bitcoin, that key might be like Satoshi's key or Binance's key. But on, say, Ethereum, I'd say what the most vulnerable key probably is the minting key for the stable coins.
Wow.
So and Circle, they did their IPO. They didn't mention quantum as a threat, which I think was really a big miss. They really should talk about this because, BlackRock's talking about it in their, their ETF. But if somebody gets a hold of the minting key for USDC, they could mint basically they could mint trillions, quadrillions of coins and go flood the market with it, buy whatever they want. And
it's sort of like the equivalent of printing money. They have the ability, right?
Exactly. It would be they would have the money.
The
printer
reserve
at that point.
can print more money, right?
And they could also probably, a lot of times they're on these contracts that you can change the minting key, right? They have the ability to rotate the keys, so they can change it to a new one so that the other guy doesn't have it. Or there's in Ethereum, there's this terrible pattern, in my opinion, called the upgradable proxy, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a smart contract, this immutable code that runs on chain. There's a key that can change it in many cases. And so you just swap out the contract for a new contract. And
so, okay, the way I think about it is that there's a massive global investment, modern day arms race to build this theoretical quantum computer that may or may not exist, or maybe is not stable enough, hasn't hit scale yet. But when it does, all these systems are going to upgrade. And so these little attack points that you're mentioning are sort of inevitably, Bitcoin's just going to fork, right?
What it's good. Yeah. The question is it going to be sort of a forced emergency fork, or is it going to be something they do proactively?
Probably not.
And I don't know. It's, everyone is sort of, I think, assuming that they're going to be told, that the public's going to know when a quantum computer comes. And I just, it's like intelligence agencies are very interested in quantum computers. Snowden leaked the NSA documents. There's a whole thing about quantum computing in there. They think that they're going to be able to crack a bunch of keys. And if they get it first, they're not going to fucking tell you that they have it, because that would defeat the purpose of them getting it in the first place.
Spending all that time and money and resources and espionage or whatever it is that they did to make it, to get it.
Right. In fact, I would say, I would assume it's the opposite. If you hear them say they have a quantum computer, they probably don't. Right? It's it's war. Why, you don't, if you're broadcasting that you're strong, it's
you
probably
drop the bomb. You don't.
Yeah. You go, I'm going to come get you all the way over there. That's some WWF stuff, I think most people don't realize, if you're a normal citizen, you go to work and you watch television or go on Twitter, YouTube, you're basically a bottom feeder in terms of information. You're the last category of people to learn about important things that are happening in the world. It's not the intelligence agencies don't be gee, I think the public needs to know what we're doing. Occasionally when it's a super important psychological operation, that might happen. But in general, they're not trying to inform you what's going on. Their whole advantage comes from secrecy, and obviously also many resources. But if they broadcast everything they're doing, then the other agencies now know about it, foreign adversaries, and then also the public knows about it, and then the public might not like what they're doing,
Right.
And I personally think that if most people knew what their governments were up to, not just in America, but in most countries, if they knew what the intelligence agencies were up to, all the kinds of
They wouldn't vote for it.
they wouldn't vote for it. They would probably have a fucking revolution overnight. I mean, some of the amount of like just dirty mafia tactics that happen at that level of power, and it's actually perfectly normal behavior for humans. It's not like I'm not vilifying it. It's actually really normal because that's how power works. If you want to get on top of the pyramid, you don't get to be there without doing some pretty serious shit.
Right.
So
it's interesting that Coinbase didn't put it in there, or Circle.
Circle, yeah, they didn't, and maybe their lawyers just didn't think it was that important. Nobody informed the lawyers, or I don't know exactly what happened internally, but I think it's a major and this is happening. The Genius Act is happening, the Clarity Act is happening. They have the government's integrating stablecoins into the financial system, but then on the other hand, in other departments, they're saying, "Hey guys, we all need to upgrade our cryptography."
Right, and this is common in any big company or government, right? You got agencies that aren't.
It's not perfectly synchronized. It's not even really one organization. It's like a whole bunch of organizations. They get loosely labeled the same thing, but it's worth thinking about, what would happen to the U.S. dollar or stable coins if somebody could suddenly print a quadrillion. Now the things why would somebody do that? It probably wouldn't be for money. I mean, you probably could get some money out of it, if either shorting something somewhere or buying some asset with your printed money as quickly as you can. But that's really, it would be a kind of terrorist attack on critical financial infrastructure. And
it would cause all kinds of mayhem in probably all the markets, right?
It would, yeah. As soon as they're all connected. So if Ethereum, USDC went basically to zero, that means that everything that was priced in USDC would now go to infinity. And so nobody would trust the prices. But then there's other stable coins, but then that amount of sloshing around in the prices would just ricochet all throughout the market. And if you're an alert trader and you're on it and you understand what's happening, you can probably make a ton of money when that happens. But you'd have to react really fast.
Right.
And meanwhile, the whole public belief in the infrastructure would
that would be the big damage.
Be like, okay, well, all right. And of course, some regulator is going to come in and be like, okay, guys, well, we tried the Bitcoin thing, doesn't work. See, that's why you need the government to control your money supply, because a quantum computer might come break your. When
they were the one who did it the whole time,
right? I mean, that would be that would just be right on in character. But
all right, so watch out for that, folks, and look out for systems that are using post-quantum cryptography. So Save Now, Decrypt Later, Signal, iMessage, they updated.
Yeah, so Signal has been a market leader in private messaging for a long time, and they already integrated in a hybrid. They call it a hybrid system, meaning it's a mixture of old cryptography, the elliptic curve stuff, and new cryptography, post quantum stuff. So the idea is that the post quantum stuff is newer, so we're not as sure that it's secure, but so they kind of, you would make it so you'd have to break both of them.
Okay. And so how did they manage to do that without I don't know, making things slow down, or it cost you a little more space to be using more encryption, right?
Well, okay. So there's broadly speaking, there's kind of two categories of encryption. One is symmetric and the other one is asymmetric. So if you hear about public key cryptography, or with Bitcoin, it uses asymmetric, right? So meaning the person who verifies the message, the person who signs it, different people, they use different keys. Versus a symmetric system is where we have a shared key and we're using that to encrypt or authenticate things. So in general, the symmetric key systems are less threatened by quantum computers. So AES is an example of that, or there's variants like polychacha and things like that. So algorithm that it uses lattice cryptography. It's called Keeber was its nickname, and it was a key encapsulation mechanism. So what you do is you have this, basically you only do the post-quantum thing at the very beginning of the session. You don't have to do it for every message. You're doing it once at the beginning of the session, and you use that to securely exchange a secret. And then from that point on, you use that secret to, you split it into pieces, and then you have different channels. But basically, you use that secret as the starting point for basically an AES like channel, a symmetric channel. So it turns out that like in the case of communications, the encryption, it doesn't add that much overhead.
Okay.
So
because it's like a one-time thing, and now unless I update, then I have to exchange that first key.
Yeah, and there might be like, you might have a timeout, like you're okay, we're going to rotate the keys every so often, but it's like it's actually a pretty it's pretty infrequent compared to, you know, the rest of the communications. And also the signing can happen right at the beginning. You sign the key that you use to the key encapsulation. And so
when Signal upgraded, was that did iMessage grab their same protocol? Is that how that works?
I don't think it was exactly the same. iMessage has something similar, but it's different. But it was in principle it was you know, same purpose and very similar outcome.
Just on a side tangent here, so Signal is open source, but WhatsApp uses the same stuff under the hood, and also Telegram. Is that true?
No. So WhatsApp used to use the Signal protocol. I think they've drifted away from it over time. Now it is a closed source app, and you know, WhatsApp has started integrating AI, but they say it's a private AI. But they were also, you know, they admitted that they were taking the metadata and sending it to you know, Meta's servers. So you know, I wouldn't make there might be some similarities in the architecture on the encryption level, but I think beyond that, I would say that WhatsApp is not nearly as secure as Signal, and also it's closed source, so we don't even really know what's in the source code.
Right.
But also it's interesting to note that just recently the U.S. House of Representatives said that nobody is allowed to use WhatsApp, none of their staffers anymore. So, and that happened shortly after they integrated this Meta AI thing into it. So
it's just so, first of all, the app is working so much slower, you know, since that upgrade, I like, it's interesting. It's supposed to make things better. And I just look at through all the options. You look on GPT, I can't find a way to turn it off. So I have to use this AI. So it's just basically feel like I'm just getting fully indexed. Like any and everything I do, it's a full graph on all my conversations, I feel like.
Yeah, they probably are feeding all of it into the AI at some level, and you know, maybe they're anonymizing it, but like if
I can't even run a search. Like at the top, if I like, you know, want to search something,
just like a local search. There's no
in my WhatsApp, if I'm looking for an old text from somebody and I know that keyword, I'm looking for it. But now it's the AI doing that search. I just want to search my messages. I don't need your extra filters. Or within a conversation, if I'm searching for something, it uses the AI.
And you know, as soon as WhatsApp sold to Facebook, immediately they were like, okay, now like back up your messages on, you know, iCloud or Google Drive, and like, okay, how are you also backing up the keys? Are you backing them up unencrypted? You know, so there was an immediate push to get access to that data as soon as I think that's why a company with no revenue was able to sell for $19 billion. You know, that's a lot of money.
That is.
And I think that the founders of WhatsApp, like, I mean, look, are you going to turn down $19 billion? You know, like, but you know, I think they were genuine privacy advocates, and they shortly after they sold it to Facebook, they said, okay, it's time to delete Facebook, guys. Like, get rid of it. It's gone. You know. So, you know, and the whole story of Facebook is interesting. I mean, like, you know, they did this movie to make it look like it was like this very organic thing, but you know, like a whole bunch of like the executive level of Facebook are all like ex-DOD, like Department of Defense, you know, and they were, you know, buying this drone company, and like they bought this facial recognition software. It's like, you know, it's very, you know, if it's not explicitly military, it's like one click away from it.
You mean
know?
It's not just good old Uncle Mark?
Yeah. I mean, I used to be human.
Yeah.
I still am human. You know, like, what's my? I mean, he's like, I think he's playing into it at this point. You know, like although he's got the rebrand now, he looks like he's more like
he's
high
cool.
high testosterone. He's like he's
doing
kid with
jujitsu.
curly hair.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know. So everybody
Forgets. It's like Bill Gates with his sweater on.
Yeah, it's like, oh look, he's just like my uncle, old Billy Boy. You know. Yeah, the whole like I think privacy is going to become more and more important to people, and some people are just not going to get it before it's too late. But you know, like the information, it's not I wouldn't have an issue if everybody got to see everybody else's stuff if it was actually symmetric. You know,
right.
If, like the president can watch me masturbate, I can watch the president masturbate. You know, and like we're all good. You know, but no, there's like a tiny group of people that gets to watch everything that everyone on the planet does.
Bunch of fucking perverts just watching everyone
and nobody has any idea what they're up to.
Right.
Anytime we get like just a little peek into it, it seems like some like horrible shit, you know, so.
No, I like this. This is actually really, it's because a lot of people say, I don't have anything to hide. And it's like, no, that's true. And I get that. And so people don't always understand why. Even myself, sometimes I'm like, I don't care. I just want to use the thing, accept. And what did I just accept? I just said, you can look at everything in my phone and all the other apps I'm using and draw a whole graph between it all and figure me out.
Track my location and sample my DNA. Yes. And, you know, you can have sex with my wife too. That's what it says. So, like...
You know what's cool about AI now is that you can take all the terms of service and just pop it in the AI and summarize it. Ask for red flags, you know?
Yeah, is there anything weird in here? I mean, they'll always find something weird in there.
What should I know?
It's like a good lawyer,
So I love that. I love using it for insurance, right? Things that you would never be able to get a claim on, right? You have an insurance policy, but it's just way too complicated, and you don't. The claim's not worth hiring a lawyer, you know. But now you can take that whole policy in 2 seconds, put it in Grok, GPT, put it in all of them, you know, and just make them fight with each other. Oh, Grok said this. What about that? You know, and then all of a sudden now you're a lawyer in a box, and you know, it's like draft this with the tone of, you know, a U.S. state attorney or something. You know,
right. You know, like make me a website for a very serious looking law firm. You know, and no, I do think the law profession is gonna have to transform. One, it's getting threatened by AI, but it's also getting threatened by blockchain. You know, the whole idea of a smart contract is like, okay, well, the contract doesn't need anyone to argue about it. It doesn't need a judge to.
It just does what it's supposed to do. We programmed it that way in the beginning. Now there are oracles and there is governance, and that's where the fuckery comes in.
Sure, there's still a role for humans in this system. I mean, the system is presumably made for humans, but. You know, the idea that like you're just going to sit back and like nobody can read contracts except for me, or like, you know, everybody has to ask me for advice and I can charge them the $800 an hour. Like, sorry, GPT is going to make most of the. You can be smarter than your doctor and smarter than your lawyer.
No, I literally had this insurance claim with Tesla, Solar City or whatever, Tesla's solar division, which used to be Solar City. And it was a 5-year litigation. It was in my home in New Jersey. I have this house. I put Solar City up there 10 years ago. They did a chop job of an installation. I had no idea. So I'll give you a little education here about roofs if you want to know. So basically, don't drill holes in your roof. Okay, folks? If you don't know that, now you do. Be really careful if you're going to put solar panels on your roof. You think you're saving money and you're putting these roof racks. Anyway, so what they did was they just drilled directly into the roof. And there's like one of these little dead space attics in there. And for about 3 or 4 years, every time it rained, it was leaking in the attic, but nobody knew. Every once in a while, there was like a leak in the house and we'd kind of like troubleshoot it and stuff. And then one day, the ceiling in the bedroom upstairs just fell into the thing. And it revealed what was years of a leak that was just slowly coming in. Wow. And then, you know, my tenant thankfully was like, you know, a contractor. So he goes up there with a ladder, he takes these videos, and you could just see it clear as day. It was just a screw, like, and no flashing. The way they were supposed to do it, it was not done. I had it clearly documented. Call my insurance company. They're like, no, this isn't on us. This is on the solar company. They did the installation. They should have insurance, la, la, la. So I find that policy. 5 years
Wow.
of going back and forth. Now, I could say maybe I could have wrapped it up in less than 5 years, but they purposely would just drag their feet the whole way through. And I finally settled it this year, and it was only because of AI that I was able to. And I tried to get multiple lawyers in the process. I would send them the contract. I would explain the situation. I had the pictures. It was obvious. Everyone agreed, even the insurance company. They wouldn't pay it out,
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, now I have, Claude and GPT as my little legal team. And they just started writing me letters like I was a lawyer, identifying every line, showing their responsibility. And then they settled the claim finally, But I had to
You had to lawyer up.
I had to lawyer up. But even a lawyer wouldn't do it for me. So it was
and the Claude GPT are pretty cheap compared to lawyers. They're fast. They don't sleep. They don't complain. They don't. As far as we know, I haven't seen them backstab you and try to collude with your opponent. There's all of the fuckery that a lawyer can do. It's much more limited with the AI, at least for now.
Right. I highly recommend this for people who are like, oh, I'm not using AI. Sometimes I meet people, they're like, I don't know. I don't trust it. I don't get it. I get that. Maybe the privacy thing is a big compromise on it. But wow, take your insurance policies, anything you have in that regard, put it in there and you can know everything about the policy and how to make a claim. And it'll say, make me a claim. And boom, it'll spit it out for you.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, look, and you think about okay, and there's so many things where the bottleneck is paperwork that has to be filed by somebody with a law degree, and for now there's I think the law can protect the existing stakeholders, the lawyers, from some of the automation because it's a lawyer has to push the button, and we also have this people are up in arms about the AI read my information and used it to make itself, and therefore they owe me money. People don't realize it, but they're playing the same game that these scientific journals are playing, where public funds often go to fund research, which then gets published, and then it gets published in a journal, which then charges people through the nose to read from it. And so that journal is essentially it's taking public money, but then turning it into profit. It's like if the tax is already paid for the research, so then why isn't the research available to the public? But it's because people don't know and don't care. They don't have time.
All right, so let's talk about intellectual property. You're building a blockchain. You've been on a dozen projects since I've known you. Most of the time, it's all open source.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm
well, I think part of it is I grew up playing a lot of classical piano, and all of those books. Yeah, I paid to acquire the physical book, but there were multiple options. And why were there multiple options? Because the music itself was not copyrighted, or it didn't have a patent or whatever the term would be, and so there's all this wonderful stuff that we have as basically for free. Beethoven's music is free. Somebody has to play it, or somebody has to write it, record it, write it down. Right? There's all these kind of manual jobs that have to be done by somebody, but it's an enormous wealth of to just have all this free stuff around. So it also the open source community. This is I think people who are not engineers often don't realize they're on GitHub. There's thousands and thousands of extremely sophisticated, well built software projects that are just sitting there where you could download them, and if you've learned how to put it together, you could put it together yourself. And this is such in this culture. That's what Linux is. Linux was a radical departure from, you had Unix, Microsoft, and you think about imagine somebody asks you to sign a contract, but you're not allowed to read it, right? That's essentially what's going on when when you run closed source software on your computer, right? This thing could be doing all kinds of mischief, and you don't know about it because you're not allowed to read the source code. Oh, right. because this is part of our intellectual
property, right?
Right. So it becomes this and that's, but also intellectual property was the reason why we needed to have all these very invasive services that to make sure that you're not watching pirated movies, and look, I get it. If you invest a lot of time building something, you want to like make sure so nobody steals it. But like people are applying a concept of ownership, which applies to things in the physical world because they're finite, right? I can't just copy paste this crystal and then give you one. But with information, it behaves differently.
Right.
If I take a copy, it's still, you can still have the copy. Now I have a copy too. I haven't deprived you of it.
Right.
But you want the ability, some people want the ability to deprive others of it. And look, I mean, this is an old Irish saying, you know, if more than two people know it, it's not a secret. You know, and
so we just want that advantage, and this is what, you know, a lot of America is built on. A lot of the world is built on this.
Yeah, you think about like Hollywood is built almost entirely on intellectual property. It's, you know, and yeah, there's always tons of money that goes into the film production, but you know, what keeps people from copy pasting it is, you know, an army of lawyers and surveillance. So, you know, and there was a time when the whole Pirate Bay thing was like, you know, very controversial. There was Napster. There was what were some of the other ones, the file sharing programs.
Well, I mean, the news groups, Waze, BitTorrent.
BitTorrent, yeah, was a big one, and that, you know, that turned into you know, that DHT turned into, that was basically a critical part of IPFS, and kind of an important idea fed into blockchains as well.
So open source is this? It's like, okay, so we talked about WhatsApp. So Signal is open source. So you could go to GitHub and we can audit the code, right? We can look at all the inner workings of that application and say, this is exactly how it works. This is how we know there's encryption being used. This is how they derive the keys, the addresses, how it's shared. Everything is there for you to sort of take a look at and also copy and make your own if you want to.
That's right. And so there's this idea of security through obscurity, where you don't want, you know, you don't even want people to know how it works, because then they might be able to reverse engineer it. But you know, the more modern approach to cybersecurity is assume your opponent knows everything about your system,
right?
Because they probably will.
Yeah.
And then you need to isolate the confusion into one place called the key. The key is where you put all the randomness that you hide. Now you only have to secure this one little random piece of thing, and you can also change it later. So that's the kind of magic of cryptography, is like you assume that whoever's trying to spy on you or impersonate you or whatever it is knows every detail of your system, and that forces you to think about the security correctly. And so, because there's so many things like, you know, like the whole credit card fraud industry is completely unnecessary from the point of view that if we had public key cryptography that we were using, then getting everyone's credit cards wouldn't be valuable, right? So like, you know, Target gets hacked and 300 million credit cards were sitting in their database. You know, why? Because they just kept everything in their database and they needed to charge people sometimes. But like, you think about the credit card, it has like a, you know, your secret number on it. Like, and then to pay somebody, you hand them the secret number, be like, please don't use my secret number to take more money than you're supposed to. You're like, oh no, they took too much money. Let me call the internet police. Like this is just a bad design. Like, if this is exactly what public key cryptography is designed to solve, which is, okay, I sign a message proving that I'm sending the money to you. That's what blockchains are. It's using public key cryptography. So you get my address, you have 100 million addresses, Bitcoin addresses in your database. Cool, that's what the blockchain is. Like, you know, there's so many things in you know, the design that we actually have the solution for them, but it's not that easy to use, you know, in many cases. And like, for example, PGP was a strong cryptography for email. And it was, I think this guy Zimmerman, Phil Zimmerman, I think, in the 70s made it. And it was a natural application of, you know, two existing technologies, and combine them in an elegant way. But somehow it just never became easy to use for some reason. Only like very technically sophisticated people could do it. And there was even this sort of aura around it. I mean, if you read Glenn Greenwald's book, Nowhere to Hide, he talks about when Snowden came to him with his leaks. For months, he wouldn't even because Snowden said, you need to download PGP software so that I can send you an encrypted message. And he just wouldn't fucking do it. He was like, oh, he wants to send me an encrypted message. Oh, I can't figure this out. And it actually, PGP did require, it wasn't that difficult to use, but people are just scared of math, I think is part of it. But the UX work hadn't been done to make it like super easy to do.
Totally. I've tried to, I would say I'm a power user. And I remember just being like, oh wow, this is inconvenient.
It's quite inconvenient. But now I think the amazing thing that Signal did was they basically made secure communications as easy to use as Facebook.
Yeah.
And you don't really ever have to think about the fact that you're using cryptography unless you really want to check somebody's keys, and they call it a safety number, and they kind of like have this, they make it very easy to scan somebody's safety number, and so I think what Signal has done has been tremendous. I mean, like in terms of moving the cypherpunk vision forward of widespread cryptography. So there's other things like that, and naturally, like there's certain this sort of technology is more attractive to adversarial situations, right? Like cryptography is kind of like a bunch of complicated nonsense that you don't really need if we're all friends. We're all friends here. I don't really care if he knows what message I sent you or you know what message I sent him. I mean, so what? But like if somebody's going to use that against you to try to put you in a cage, kidnap you, blackmail you, all the things that governments like to do, then now you need to be now you need to encrypt your shit. So open source is like it's just like it's kind of a dignity thing. You're like, oh, you're gonna ask me to like just think about that sneer you would have if somebody asked you to sign a contract that you weren't allowed to read. Like you'd just be like, what the fuck? Are you really? Like, what are you trying to pull over on me? That's how we should be with closed source software. It just should be like, no, absolutely not. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to read every line of the contract, but I should be able to. The principle of the random audit is super powerful. It's like, if you don't know which part I'm going to read, then that's a strong incentive to make it good, right?
Yeah. Keeps everyone honest.
Yeah.